Hey, how's it going, everybody? Polish Outdoorsman here. I want to show you one of the things I like to do with some of my harvested meat. We're going to make some jerky. So let's go see how we do that, okay? First, you need your meat, right? So, keep mine in the freezer after I harvest it. This jerky recipe we're going to do is goose meat. So, took it last fall, and we're going to go for that. One of the things you got to make sure you remember, though, is the growth of various types of bacteria and keeping your meat good. So a slow thaw-out process is best. Put it in your pot, fill it with cold water. Once it's full, let it sit. If the process takes 6-8 hours, not a problem. The slower the thaw, the better the thaw. So I'll come back to you when we're ready to cut it up. Got our meat drained it out of our packages. You want to make sure that there's just a little bit of frost left in the meat because that'll help you cut it a little bit easier. Next thing you're going to need is a good sharp knife. I like this one, and I got my trusty fillet knife depending on how thick you want to make your jerky slices. I like to make mine just a little bit thicker because remember, they do reduce by as much as 40 to 50% depending on the cut of meat as the dehydrator does its job. So because it's all game meat, there's not going to be a whole lot of extra trimming or fat. All you really have to worry about taking off is some of the silver skin or the connective tissue that holds everything on. Most people throw it away. One of the things I do is I save it and I cook it up in a little bit of lard or some Crisco or something. Fry it up good, make sure it's cooked, obviously, so you don't have any extra bacteria in there, and then I feed it to my dogs. Dogs love it. It's a great treat for them. The cartilage and that you might have in there, the connective tissue, is actually good for them, so it doesn't hurt them a bit. Now, I'm going to get this cut up, and then I'll show you how we do our seasoning. Okay, down to my last piece here. Got it sorted out in the bowl. Now, you want to try to slice everything as uniform as you can for even dehydrating, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And normally I'm a lot more careful and picky about my cutting and my trimming, but because it is wintertime for us right now, I'm not worrying about being so picky because this will be good for the dogs. Cook it up, they get some good high quality meat, they get a little bit extra fat with the way I cook it, so it's not going to be a bad thing for the dogs. But as I'm cutting and trimming, it just kind of goes pretty easy. Having the extra little bit of frost in here is really what makes it just kind of glide through with minimal pressure. And you just kind of work your way through it and make sure that everything kind of gets separated, because what's going to happen is we put it in our marinade to soak. You want to make sure that you can mix it around good and every individual piece gets its own set of attention from the marinade. And we're going to want to let it marinate in the refrigerator overnight before we set it up into our dehydrator. But one of the things I'm going to do as soon as I'm done with this is I'm going to rinse it out, give it a good nice rinse in the sink before I actually go ahead and mix up my marinades. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be right back with you to show you my mixes. Okay, ready to do our marinades. So if you want to follow along, I can kind of show you what I got here. First of all, we got Worcestershire sauce, which I love the flavor that it gives. Soy sauce. The main reason I use soy sauce is because it has the higher sodium content. I don't actually have to add extra salt to it, so I use a little bit of soy sauce. We're going to do 2 different batches today. So we got a brown sugar bourbon, smokehouse maple. My secret, always use thyme. Thyme is essential for helping to tenderize that meat. I got some ginger, and I got some smoking applewood rub that's just kind of mixed in with it. And as it sits overnight, it really infuses into the meat really, really good. That's the way I like it. So we're going to need 1 cup, which is about half a bottle. So we're going to pour that one in there. And since it's about half a bottle, we'll just dump the rest of it in there, because it doesn't really matter at that point. And then we need Same thing with the Worcestershire. One cup of that. Which, yep, that was just about 1 cup. Okay, now for the thyme, we want to put in approximately a healthy sized tablespoon, because that is very important. The ginger, you don't want to put in quite as much. Just a good sprinkle till you have a good coating across the top of whatever dish you're working in. Now the smoking apple wood, I'm going to divide it up and use that as an add-on to go with the brown sugar bourbon and smokehouse maple. And we're going to get another, again, a nice healthy tablespoon in there. Maybe. And then we're all set. You want to kind of stir it up a little bit, get everything incorporated and mixed a little bit. And then we're going to take about half of our meat, and you want to kind of press it in there as you add it to help break apart the meat, because after you rinse it with the water, it wants to stick together. And we want to make sure that we have our marinade coating and surrounding all of our meat. We're going to let this marinate and sit overnight, so between 6 and 8 hours. I'll probably have a beer later, go to bed, and then when I wake up, this will be ready to go into the dehydrator after we drain it and let it kind of drip dry just a little bit in the colander, because you don't want to put excess liquid in your dehydrator, because that's kind of bad. Okay, now I told you earlier that I cook a lot of the scraps up and the trimmings up for the dogs. For all you haters out there who are like, oh my god, you're keeping your dogs outside, it's wintertime. First of all, screw you. I take really good care of my dogs, alright? Yes, they are outside the majority of the time, but whenever it gets super cold out, such as 15 degrees or less, my dogs always come inside, and they usually suffer every minute that they're inside because they're used to being outside and they like being outside. But I still bring them in because it is freaking cold out there. But they have a doghouse that's inside of a barn, that is inside of a fenced-in area with plenty of hay, straw, and cedar chips. Keeps them warm, they're fine. But either way, cooking up some extra stuff for the dogs. You haters out there, shut up. Alright, so what we're going to do, got the oven started, got my nice healthy chunk of lard in here, and we're just going to kind of lap in the meat here, and we're just going to cook it up, and then we're going to let it cool, and we're going to give it to the dogs in the morning for their breakfast. And you know what? They're going to love it. Okay, everybody, yeah, we're back here. We let everything marinate for quite a few hours overnight, just to kind of give you an idea here without me spilling it maybe. Okay, everything's been submerged, we're good to go. I'm going to drain it. We're all set with that. I already got one batch in the sink here draining in a colander. And we're just going to go ahead and start laying it out in our dehydrator. Now, one of the keys that you got to remember when you're doing this is to try to leave as much air space around everything as possible. You don't really want your meat touching, because as it shrinks and dehydrates a little bit, it's also going to kind of touch with each other, and you could end up with just one big long strip of really mangled meat that just isn't dehydrated properly if it's all touching. So you got to make sure that it's not touching and you have airspace around everything. Okay, now the other thing that you want to make sure you remember is the bigger the pieces that you have, be it just longer or thicker, you want to have more airspace around them than the smaller pieces, because that's going to help the dehydrator to do its job. You don't want them to touch, obviously, and you want to make sure that you have plenty of airspace around them, especially with the thicker pieces. The thicker you get, the more airspace you need. And the other thing that you want to make sure is you try to have a balanced dehydrator, meaning equal pieces around all sides, because that's going to help the air to rotate more efficiently and effectively. If you just got to have everything on one side, when you get to your last batch, kind of like this, I had too much for one tray, not enough to fill a bottom tray, but you still want to try to make it kind of balanced so that the airflow can make its way all the way around. And that'll make for a much better piece of jerky when it's all said and done. Everybody kind of get a chance to see it before I plug it in. And we'll plug it in. Make sure our lid is on snug. Set our time temp at 160. Timer 6 hours. And start. So 6 hours, we should have some good jerky, and I'll try some for you right here in front of the camera so you can decide whether or not it's any good. My opinion, make your own batch, make your opinion, and then you can find out if I die or not because I did something horribly wrong. So, alright everybody, now it's the time for truth. Everything's done, it's shut off, it's been sitting here cooling for a little while, it's no longer warm. So, I wish we had smell-o-vision because, oh my god, this smells fantastic. So, alright, let's see. Moment of truth. Mouth watering. Oh my god, that is so good. Well, this batch I would deem a complete success. I can't wait to have a little bit more. So, Polish Outdoorsman saying, I hope you found this helpful. I hope you all find it tasteful. And if I don't see you around, I'll see you around. Here